ugly bitch, and things like that. And they all jump on him. So they say, oh, Judyth has a cult. No, Judyth has friends who have seen her stuff, and I love all of you. I care about you with all my heart. And I want you to know the truth about our country and what they did. And about the fact that David Ferrie is not who they point out to be, neither was Lee. I'm going to show a couple more pictures. How much time do I have? Any time left? Probably not. But I'm going to do my best here just to carry on a little bit longer. Okay, there's David was part of a group that you don't even know anything about. And these were bishops and people that were in religion. And they were basically CIA, and they used these for fronts, these strange religions. David had a strange ring. It sort of looked like that. And I thought, well, maybe it was a griffin or a gargoyle or something, this ring, but I guess it was a two-headed eagle, because I finally found this. It looks a lot like what was on his ring. He said, oh yeah, I can get into satanic cults with this, because one person who didn't like him, Perry Russo, said, he had black masses and was drinking chalices of blood to say horrible things about David that weren't true. Okay, it is true that David Ferrie liked little young boys, but not that young, okay? All right. Now, interestingly enough, David met Mary Sherman at the Crippled Children's Hospital. It's right next to the infectious lab that Ed Haslam was talking about. And he brought over toys. He had collected toys together. And this is kind of peripheral, but it shows that I knew who David Ferrie was. It's one of the ways I can show it. Because he collected these toys, and so did Mary, and that's how they met. She was passing out, it was Christmas time, and they were passing out these things, and they met. And then he was bragging about how, when he found out she was a cancer researcher, he was bragging about his cancer research, and she got kind of interested in him. When she found out he was anti-Castro, just like her, that was it. And so she was very intrigued, and he offered her flying lessons. He offered that to a lot of people, things like that you don't know about. But this is interesting because the day that David Ferrie was found dead, it says, up the walk-up, adjoining a front porch piled high with debris, including children's toys. See, that was in 1967. And why would Dave have toys? Well, I'm telling you how he met Mary Sherman, that he was killed, okay, on February 22nd. You may say, well, that's after Christmas. But he was interviewed before Christmas, a month before Christmas, by Garrison's people, and it undid him. He knew he was going to die. He was really worried. This pleasant-looking man over here, his name is George Lardner. Georgie Porgy tells us, okay, he's with the Washington Post, and he's alive, and he could sue me, I suppose, for this. George says that he saw David Ferrie at midnight. I don't know how many people actually go and interview people at midnight. He claimed he was there at Dave's apartment at midnight. Saw at 4 o'clock in the morning, he was fine, then he's dropped dead. Originally, Chetta said that David had died the night before, but he changed it because of Lardner. Now, Lardner had some kind of big skeleton in his closet. That skeleton's name, see, that's George Lardner? That skeleton's name was Ring Lardner. Anybody here know who Ring Lardner was? All right, he was this famous sport fighter. He was famous because he was a communist, according to the McCarthy era, okay? In the 30s, this was going to ruin George Lardner's career because he's also a writer, and he's with the Washington Post, and he wants to look good. We have George Lardner saying that David Ferrie had to die after 4 o'clock. This is the time period when Garrison wasn't watching him, nobody else was watching David Ferrie. Now, something interesting. Across the street was Life magazine, and they had a two-story house there facing right across to David's apartment. And what's fascinating about this is that this was surveillance. Now, if you look at the camera and look into David Ferrie's apartment, I'm going to do it for you. Over here, Lardner said he was sitting and interviewing David Ferrie in a chair. Here was David on the couch. From the surveillance, all I can see is the top of the chair and the couch. And here you see a piano. Now, they asked him, his name is Gurvich. He didn't even like Garrison. He's working with Garrison. Gurvich, I think, got in there to do some damage control to prove that Lardner had been in there. So he says to Lardner, tell me, did you see any medicine in there? Because some people were saying that Dave killed himself by, imbibing medicine of some kind. And he said, oh yes, I remember. There was medicine. I saw a bottle. It was on the piano. Well, my friends, that's all you can see from the surveillance. You can see the chair top. You can see the piano. You can see that bottle of medicine on the piano. Over here, you can see the couch. What you couldn't see was the table between them that had 12 bottles of medicine on it. Lardner didn't see it. He wasn't there. That's why he didn't see it. Lied. There's a note up here saying, give me a ring and I'll come over and see you. And in his testimony, it's there in black and white. He says, I had the cab wait. I had to wait because I didn't know whether he's going to see me or not, this late. But there's a ferry expert out there who says, oh yes, Lardner called and Dave called him and said, come over. So these people, to this very day, are lying about how David Ferrie died. Now, Chetta himself didn't last. Chetta was supposed to tell everybody about what he knew about David Ferrie and Mary Sherman and Guy Bannister in 1969 in the final throes of the trial. But unfortunately, he dies of a heart attack. They all do, Right. So, let's go on here. There's his house. There's the mouse house. Down there is the kitchen, if you can see it from there. That is only a little part of the kitchen, and believe me, we had plenty of room because he had some carts to put things on. There weren't any cabinet. There were no counters. Okay, now here are the house. There's a plan up there. You see that on the left-hand side? That's in Lee Oswald's address book. That's upside down. It's been turned the right way. You see there's some X's. 1, 2, 3 X's. Can you see those X's? Let's see if I can show those to you. Let's see if I can do this. My eyes are so bad. Okay, there's an X here, and one over here. That's where I had the microscope. This is where I had journals. I had clothes on top of these. This is where we had the key outside. There is right where you had the key. Here is the front door. Here is the front door. Here is the first window. There's the first window. The second window wasn't shown because that's where my bed was, and nobody's going to go through the window on the bed, Now, in 2000, we had researchers go in there, and these little round things, these are overhead lights, they were still there in this 1032 Marengo. Now, you see the condition of this house and everything. This is in 2000. In 2003, the History Channel went back there to photograph it. It was completely different. A doctor had come in and bought the house, doctor from London. They moved this to the middle. They moved this window over here. They gutted the whole thing. It completely made it different. Lots of the evidence that I had has been changed the same way. But fortunately, we have the photographs. We had them go in and take pictures. And I can assure you, this was my house the way it was before they changed it in 2003 when they found out it was going to, I think they did it when they found it was going to be photographed for the History Channel. Okay, now, go here. Dave didn't give me much. I have very little to show you that because I was interested in Lee. I wasn't interested in Dave. But he gave me this wooden nickel. It's kind of important because methylene iodide, we use that to help preserve cancer cells in glycerin, in liquid nitrogen. And try to find one of these, okay? Because these were usually used just by oil companies and so on. Now, this woman, Teresa Naughton, I don't know anything about her, but I picked up this here from David Ferrie's own table in the kitchen, in the dining room, and that is coffee stains. Now, look, if you want to really get coffee stains on yourself, just go and sit at David Ferrie's dining room, because it's coffee and Jell-O and cigarettes and beer is about all I ever saw him imbibe. And how he kept himself alive on it, I do not know. Maybe. But at any rate, this is a poem, and he told me it was written by a person named Teresa. And only last year, about a year and a half ago, I found out that there was a person he knew whose name was Teresa. And I had put that for years and told people for years about this person, Teresa. It turns out that this person was believed to have known him. But I don't have much more information, but people were, this Ferrie expert, I tried to show him this, he was not interested. He said there was no Teresa. Well, it turns out there was. This is kind of interesting because this is like the hubris, and I've misspelled this. I was taking notes. David Ferrie was a genius. The HSCA will tell you that he had and not an extensive education. They're lying. You'll see in the book all the education that David Ferrie had, okay, and why it's important. Okay, let's go a little bit further here. David Ferrie, my friend David, I was telling you now, and here you can see it. Here is what could be seen. There's the chair. This is a picture that was taken on the 22nd when David was killed. And you can see the chair here. If you were doing surveillance, it'd be like that. It's a little off, but you can see it. Here's the chair that Lardner said he was sitting in. Here's the couch. You can't see the contents there, but you can see what's on the piano. You see that? Here is what was between them. Look at all that medicine. And he said, oh, I saw a bottle on the piano. Was he blind? He was there, he said, for 4 hours. He doesn't remember all that stuff that was on the table. Okay? And there are other things that are terribly wrong. You've got David's shoes over here. You've got some clothes here that like they were taken off. He's found naked in bed. How is it that he takes off his clothes, but he didn't take his wig off, and he would pull his eyebrows off because they were glued on? But no, he takes all his clothes off, but he doesn't take his wig off. He took the clothes off probably off his body because they were ripped or something, and it was shown struggle, so they're gone. Yes?
Would you be willing to take some questions now?
Okay, okay, I just want to, a couple more and I'll be finished here. Just want to finish here. Okay, I think that I've shown you enough there now. Yes, I will take questions, and I wish I could have shown you the whole world, but I'm trying. Okay, any questions, please? Yes?
This is for you or Ed. Dean in the Warren Commission, Dean Andrews
Yes.
mentions, he mentions, first of all, Clay Bertrand, who,
Oh, yeah.
of course, Clay Shaw. But he also
By the way, I addressed that in the book in detail, and we could pretty much prove that they were trying to pretend to help Lee, but go ahead.
that part was obvious, but he also mentions a Mexican person who showed up to his office, to Dean Andrews' office with him. Do you have any idea who that might be?
Well, let me tell you that actually when Lee was there, he went one time with a group of homosexuals, and when he did things like that, it was a Haidar affair. One of the awful things that we know that happened is that we have pictures of Lee's autopsy, and I have the document shows that they took hair samples from his genital area, his pubic area. Then they find pubic hairs on this blanket. See the Hausen rifle, how convenient. Okay, and then they took a sample from his head and from his chest. But they shaved all the hair off his pubic area, which made him look like a homosexual. The Dallas police did that, or did the FBI? The FBI, we have photographs where, this is gross, but you should know, they're posing with the body of Lee, and then they move his penis sideways to make it look real short. And I mean, they're handling his penis, for heaven's sakes. Of course, they thought he killed Kennedy, and so they had no respect. They only knew who he really was. Yes? Well, we're getting closer and closer to that. Here's what you must understand. With sniper teams being brought in, and people who may not even know what city they're in, it's not so important as who shot him as who let it happen, who knew it was going to happen, who covered it up. And the only people we really have to blame for that is our own government. Yes?
I may have missed this because I was late, but do you have any theories about why the government wanted him shot?
Kennedy, you need to read the book JFK and the Unspeakable. And then, just for good measure, that's by James Douglas, and then for good measure, read Vince Palomara's, it's called Survivor's Guilt, which shows what the Secret Service, you know what they've done with Obama? They did the same thing to Kennedy. They let him get killed. Okay, it's unconscionable, actual fact. Any more questions? I hope you come up here and look at some of the evidence files I have. Yes?
Did George the Mirren Shield ever cross your path when you were with
Lee told me all about him, and in fact, because of the knowledge I have, I know that Lee never shot at General Walker. By the way, besides the assassination conference and all that, you can look on my website. I'm going to all these different cities, and my getting a book really helps because that's how I pay for the next plane trip and all that kind of thing. I use my social security check is coming in on the 18th. I can't wait, so I can I know I can eat, you know. But the thing is that everybody's supporting it. This wasn't the case before. But we have persisted. We have more and more evidence always coming out. The evidence he gave you right now is new. He could have gone on for hours with other evidence that he has found out since this book came out. Okay? He's got so much in his head he couldn't even remember it all. Yes?
Did David Ferrie ever tell you, was he, do you believe that he was at the trial of
Clayjaw. Marcello, you mean Carlos Marcello.
Marcello?
Here's the thing. From what I can see, he was there until, he couldn't have been there by 12:15 because G. Ray Gill's secretary said he was at Gill's office. But that wasn't very far from the courthouse. And what we're trying to say is, when did David Ferrie took off in what really was a thunderstorm, and they're trying to say it really wasn't, but I looked up all the statistics, and the thunderstorm was all along the Gulf. And anybody who leaves at 9 o'clock, 9:30 at night, drive all night to get to Galveston, okay, and to go goose hunting, and the next day with no guns, we've got something else going on. You can read all about it, and I have all the evidence to prove what he was really up to.
He couldn't have been in Texas in the afternoon during the
Don't believe it, no.
Yeah,
no.
Okay, so
However,
the guy I saw was a double. They had him looking just like
no, I'll tell you, there are lots of fake stories out there. And
well, my story's not a fake, but I was in person. I saw this guy looked like David Ferrie. He had black freckles on it right after the assassination.
And where?
And he pointed out on the bus.
Oh, that's okay.
On
That
the shadow
doesn't.
bus. Yeah.
Here's the thing. We cannot tell, and I could not tell from what Dave told me. He contacted me. It looks to me, and I haven't put in the book because I don't want to fight with people, but it's very likely that the boys drove the car there and that he flew his L-2, his plane over there. I do know that Lee was supposed to end up at Alief Airport. It doesn't even exist anymore. In fact, I've talked to residents saying, wow, how did you know about that? Well, because Lee told me. And only 15 minutes from there is the Sugarland Airport that I have written about, that's in the book. And that's only 20 minutes from Winterland Skating Rink, where he's standing there by the phone. David Ferrie is supposedly interested in buying the rink, but he never talks about that to the owner. Doesn't skate, and anyway, the whole scenario is in the book, and I show how people have lied and what I know. Because of what I know what to discard. And I can tell you what really happened, as much as I was told. All right, and there's just so much that links the Kennedy assassination to our troubles we have today. Because Kennedy didn't want war, he wanted peace, he didn't want nuclear proliferation, he wanted the USA and the Soviets to work together on medical things, he wanted to close down biological warfare. He had been a warrior. Now, Lyndon Johnson, well, I'll just put it this way. Lyndon Johnson, we are certain, knew he was being recorded when he whined to Hoover, oh, were they shooting at me? And all that, okay? Just like when he is being sworn in as president, he went into JFK's bedroom. He went to the bathroom in there first. And then he's crying there, pretending he's upset. And then he takes out the missile. He uses Kennedy's missile. Did you know that? To put his hand on to get himself sworn in. And he puts the trophy by his side. That is the grieving Mrs. Kennedy. It's a trophy. He has won this game. And then he looks over and Albert Thomas winks at him. And that wink is very important. Did you know that Albert Thomas, this is how it started, on April 23rd, 1963, when Lyndon Johnson and others told Kennedy, you've got to go to Texas. Albert Thomas is dreadfully ill. He's going to have to quit being a congressman. We're going to have a dinner for him in Fort Worth. And hey, by the way, you can go to Dallas on your way and go to my ranch. We have a record, and it's been stolen from my computer, but I'm sure we can find it again unless they've destroyed it. We have a record of the different dinners and things that they had at the LBJ Ranch. And for November 22nd, they were supposed to cook a steer. At 11:30, an hour before Kennedy assassination, they got a call not to cook the steer. We have photos in film showing Kennedy turning that corner in the motorcade, and Lyndon Johnson ducking down before they turn the corner, and he stays down. is a real brave man. All right, so, and he's, of course, the one that said, I want Ralph Yarborough in the car there with Kennedy. I don't want my friend John Connally. John Connally never forgave him for allowing him to ride in that motorcade, okay? And he insisted to the day he died that he was hit by a separate bullet. So anybody who believes the single bullet theory has a double-digit IQ, or they work for the government.
Why couldn't we take it out of him?
All right, now, we don't have much time left, so what I'd like to do is I will sign anybody's books.
This lady over here's just been waiting.
Oh,
so
I'm
we should-
sorry, I don't have vision.
You have a couple-
Yes, ma'am.
I don't understand. You said that he saved your life.
Okay,
But
what?
I don't understand.
Okay, I should have, I'm sorry, I should have explained. And what it is that after Lee was dead, I couldn't bring my Lee back and all that. I wanted to kill myself. And Lee had told me, you've got to stay alive, before he died, I mean, you know. He said, you've got to stay alive because who's going to tell my children who I really was? He thought he was going to die. He thought they'd find him with a rifle in his hand. He said, I'm going to stay because if I stay, they can't replace me with somebody who really would shoot at Kennedy. So if I stay, there'll be one less bullet aimed at Kennedy. And we have, Dave called me and he said, look, here's what you have to do. He said, you can't get your name in the paper. Now, remember, David Ferrie was so upset when his name got in the paper. And he said, I'm a dead man. 5 days later, he died of natural causes. Okay? So he knew. He told me, don't you get your name in the paper. I did not go to my sister's wedding, so my name wouldn't get there. I didn't go to my dear grandpa. If you read about my grandpa Whiting, how much I loved him, I didn't go to his own funeral. I didn't go to my other grandparents' funeral. Not until my father died in 1977 did I finally dare. And right away the reporters got on me and got a story out of me. I didn't even realize it. But anyway, if I had had my name in the paper, I would be like David Ferrie. I'd be dead. There's no doubt about it. And I also was saved because I was J. Vary, and Dave called me Jay, and nobody knew there was a male or female. They didn't know he had any female friends, except for Teresa, I guess, and Mary Sherman. But what they did know is that J. Vary couldn't be the Mrs. Robert Allison Baker III that was living in Florida. So it saved me. And if Dave hadn't told me my maiden name had gotten to J. Vary in the papers, I'm sure I wouldn't be here. Okay, I hope that you've enjoyed this.
Thank you so much. Don't forget that, please, come up to the table with their books. We have boxes of books, and I'm sure they'll be happy to sign any books that you purchased
There are
today.
2 boxes out here in the hall. We have to open them up. But if you want books, we have them.
$20 each. And yeah, and I sent them to you. I forgot. They're the ones that I have paid for.
How much?
We're selling for $20. It's cheaper than
Okay.
they are.
You have a take debit card or credit card?